What's cooking? I'm Bella and welcome back to my kitchen. If you're new to the channel, welcome as well. Take a moment and subscribe. Make sure to turn on the notification bell as well so you get notified every time a new recipe drops. Today I'm going to be showing you 3 different ways on how to use squash and pumpkin. We're seeing them all over the stores and it's beautiful and it screams like fall. So I wanted to share with you my 3 go-to versions. So the reason why I wanted to make this tutorial is because every time I go to the store, I grab a new pumpkin or squash. I see them and I think they're so cute and I have ideas of how I'm gonna make them. So people actually have asked me how I make my squash. And it is so easy. I feel that a lot of people get intimidated because they are a very hard vegetable. It's hard to cut through them. So people get discouraged, but it is so nutritious, so flavorful. So they're all different, but in general, as a rule, they are very low in calorie. They have carbohydrates, but not as high as potato, for example. They have a lot of vitamin E, zinc, magnesium, fiber, and potassium. They actually have double the amount of bananas. So great nutritious alternative. And why not enjoy? It is pumpkin season. Okay, enough talking, let's get cooking. So I've already washed all of my squashes. I'm not going to be making all of them. Today I'm actually using the butternut squash and I am probably going to use the kabocha. This is the, I'm going to post the name here because I can't remember, Cubby, and this is the pie pumpkin. I'm already turning the stove to 400 degrees because we're going to roast our squash. I recently made a video with a creamy butternut squash casserole and I go into more details on how I cut this. You can use a bread or a serrated knife or a regular knife. So this is usually the part where people get discouraged. You can, I'm going to show you a couple options, but the way I like to do the butternut squash is I like to cut the top and be careful not to cut yourself. And I am going to cut just about here to get just the neck. Not that I'm not going to use the bottom, but I find it easier. And then I'll show you an easier way with the bottom. Just a couple suggestions for you. And then you can just peel like so. If you have a bread knife, I actually recommend, I like this much better, but I've ruined this bread knife. I have 2. And I don't remember which one's which. Here's another suggestion of how to cut this without getting frustrated. So I've cut a piece of plastic and I'm just going to puncture a couple little holes right kind of where you can see the mark. And then you're going to wrap it. And we're going to microwave it just for 5 minutes. This is to make it a little bit softer. So just be a little careful when removing it from the microwave and when removing the plastic. And my intention is not to cook the pumpkin or the squash. The intention is to make it a bit softer. So I'm using a regular knife. I'm also going to cut the top. And now I'm going to peel it just like I did with the butternut squash. So going on an angle, it is so much easier this way. So just wait a little bit so you don't burn your hands after removing from the microwave. Show you another solution using the bottom part of our butternut. So I'm going to cut the very bottom. I'm going to use the bread knife. I'm going to switch, but you could use the bread knife as well. And I'm going to cut in wedges. Now I would only recommend using this method if you're cooking for your family, because we're gonna cook with the skin. I went ahead and cut the neck of the butternut squash in small cubes. Now that the hardest part is over, let's go over the list of ingredients to get our mise en place ready for our roasted squash. Butternut squash, rosemary, salt, olive oil, ground peppercorn, coriander powder, and garlic. First, we're going to sprinkle a little bit of salt and give it about 10 minutes for the butternut squash to sweat. So it's been 10 minutes and the squash is pretty sweaty already. So we're just going to start seasoning. I do want to point out the coriander powder is optional. I personally think that it pairs really well with pumpkin, but I understand that not everybody has coriander powder in their pantry. The garlic, same thing. I like the fresh garlic in this recipe, but if you don't have it or it's easier for you to use garlic powder, go ahead and substitute. So first I'm going to add the olive oil. And now we're going to season with coriander powder. I went ahead and chopped the rosemary. So I'm only using one stem of rosemary. Peppercorn. You can use black, green, white, or what would look super adorable here would be red peppercorn. And I'm waiting to add the garlic later. So now I'm just going to mix it well with my hands. I'm going to cover with foil and bake it in the oven for 20 minutes. And while this one is in the oven, I want to go ahead and show you how I would make the one with the skin, which is in essence the same way with this one, okay? So for this recipe, I'm going to season a little bit different. So I'm going to make it more on the sweet side, although I will not be adding brown sugar because I have eliminated added sugar from my diet as much as possible. So we're going to start with a little bit of salt, but keep in mind this is going to be more on the sweet side, so we're just putting a tiny little bit of salt, again just to help it start sweating. So I like to do this with a lot of my veggies, especially if I'm going to bake them, because it's going to release a little bit of the water, and once I cover with the foil, that water is going to create steam and help it cook much faster. I am adding cinnamon. This is also a great one to do on the grill. I would just individually wrap them on foil and then add on top of your grill. And here I'm not waiting for this one to sweat just for the tutorial, but I would highly encourage it just to give it 10 minutes so it starts sweating. And then I'm also using coriander powder. And if you're using brown sugar, you're going to sprinkle with a little bit of brown sugar as well. I am satisfied with the sweetness, the natural sweetness from the squash. And then we're going to place just a small piece of butter on each one. We're also going to cover with foil and bake it. After 20 minutes, remove the foil, add in the garlic, mix well, and roast for another 15 minutes. So I ended up leaving mine in the oven uncovered for 15 minutes. I actually covered the one that I seasoned with cinnamon again for another 5 minutes, and then I'll most likely leave it uncovered for also 15 minutes. So now your side dish is ready. I'm just going to transfer to a serving dish, and this is it. You can serve it and eat it as a side. I am actually going to make one more recipe to show you. I made 1 cup of farro, and you can check out the recipe by clicking on the link above, and I will also be posting on the comments down below. So I have farro already cooked I have cranberry, pecans, and some of my roasted pumpkin left over. And I'm just going to mix it well. If I'm serving this warm, this is it. Just drizzle a little bit of olive oil. And if you're serving this cold as a salad, I would add a little bit of vinegar, very little, so olive oil and vinegar. Taste the amount of salt and pepper, adjust it as needed. You can also add some lemon zest or add a little bit more of rosemary to this. Now, tell me if this just doesn't scream holidays to you. So this is the one with cinnamon. Here we have the one I mixed with farro, and you can either hot or cold. And this is the one roasted with garlic and rosemary. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please hit the like button and leave some comments down below. I love to hear your feedback as well as know how you make your squash back at home. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.